The outpost was dead quiet. Captain Mark Hanlon crouched behind the rusted shell of an old cargo hauler, pulse rifle tight against his chest. His breath misted in the thin, frigid air. Every sound echoed too loud. Distant plasma fire, the occasional scream on the wind. They'd been cut off for 9 damn days. 9 days since the alien blockade sealed the sky above Kepri 9, this barren mining moon spinning useless around a dead gas giant. 9 days since command stopped responding, the last burst message stuttering out mid-sentence. 9 days of dwindling ammo, no reinforcements, and civilians going hungry. Mark wasn't a hero. Hell, most of the men here weren't proper soldiers. Miners, transport crews, a few old veterans like him pressed into service when the bugs came. He wiped grime from his face and glanced at Sergeant Cutter. The wiry old vet leaned against a shattered bulkhead, eyes sunken, gaunt from exhaustion. "They'll hit us again soon," Cutter rasped. Mark nodded grimly. The bugs, real name Zerath Enclave, but everyone called them bugs, had patience. They circled, probed, tested defenses, like spiders playing with prey. Each wave bled the defenders thinner. "Any word?" Cutter asked, though they both knew the answer. Mark thumbed his comm. Static, just like the last 100 times. The orbital jammers were working perfectly. "They're not coming." "Didn't think so." Mark clenched his jaw. He hated this, waiting to die, watching his people break. 20 civilians holed up in the main mine shaft. Maybe a dozen fighters left, counting the green kids who barely knew which end of a rifle to hold. He thought of his daughter, back home on Titan. He hadn't seen her in 3 years. Maybe never would again. Cutter squinted at the sky. "Look at this place. Company bled this moon dry, then left us to rot. Now the bugs finish the job." Mark didn't answer. He had no illusions about the corporations. No one did anymore. If the companies couldn't make a credit off saving them, they wouldn't bother. A crackle from the perimeter comm snapped both men upright. "Movement! North approach! Repeat, enemy massing." Then gunfire. Screams. "Shit!" Mark barked. "Move!" They sprinted toward the trench lines as shapes swarmed through the dust, chitinous, gleaming in sickly green light. Plasma bolts lit the gloom, men shouting, rifles hammering in desperation. Mark vaulted a barrier, slammed into position, and opened fire. His pulse rifle kicked hard, each shot punching holes in the scuttling tide. Cutter dropped beside him, firing steadily, but there were too many. Again, a bug leapt the trench. Mark swung his rifle like a bat, caving in its skull with a wet crunch. Another clawed at his leg. He shot it point blank. His shoulder burned where plasma had grazed him. "Captain!" someone yelled. "We can't hold!" Mark knew. His line was collapsing, ammo running dry. This was it. And then the sky ripped open. A sound like a god's hammer boomed across the heavens. The ground shook. The bugs faltered, heads tilting toward the sky. Mark followed their gaze and saw the impossible. A warship, human, pitch black, edges shimmering like it tore reality around it. Silent, save for the roar of its engines. No transponder, no signal. It shouldn't have been able to get through. The blockade made sure of that. Yet there it was, descending like a phantom. The bugs shrieked in panic. Some broke and fled. The warship opened fire. Beams of white-hot energy sliced through the air, carving the enemy ranks like wheat. Explosions rocked the plane. In seconds, the battlefield was chaos. Bugs scattering, burning, dying. Mark stared, breathless. Cutter laughed, a dry, broken sound. "I'll be damned," the old man whispered. "Someone did come." But Mark's instincts screamed caution. No markings, no call sign, no fleet EF. Whoever they weren't here on any official rescue mission. And as the ship's shadow loomed over the outpost, Mark felt a chill deeper than any alien could bring. Help had arrived, but at what cost? The warship hung low in the sky like a predator stalking wounded prey. Mark couldn't tear his eyes from it. It was sleek and angular. No design he recognized. Not a corporate vessel, not military navy, not even the Black Ops ships rumored in the outer colonies. Its hull shimmered, almost alive, as though it bent light unnaturally. He'd seen plenty of ships in his time, fought alongside destroyers and cruisers during the colonial uprising. But this thing, it didn't belong to any human fleet he knew, and yet, there it was, killing bugs like swatting flies. A fresh salvo of energy beams scorched the ground, vaporizing an entire wave of Zirath attackers mid-charge. The trench line, moments ago teetering on the edge of collapse, now sat in stunned silence. Mark rose from cover, scanning the field. The bugs were retreating, scattering into the distant canyons. For the first time in 9 days, the outpost wasn't under immediate siege. Around him, the surviving fighters poked their heads out. Dirt-smeared faces, wide eyes. No one cheered, not yet, because the warship wasn't leaving. It hovered lower, casting a deep shadow over the trenches. A low hum filled the air, making Mark's teeth ache. Then a voice, artificial cold, boomed from unseen speakers. "Human personnel, stand down. You are under protective quarantine." Quarantine? Mark's gut tightened. This wasn't a rescue operation. Something was off. Cutter staggered over, clutching his shoulder where a bug's claw had ripped through his armor. His face was pale, but his voice held that same sardonic grit. "Well, Captain, looks like the cavalry's got strings attached." Mark didn't respond. He was already scanning frequencies on his wrist comm, still jammed. No contact beyond local channels. But the warship wasn't jammed. It had come through the blockade somehow. That meant it had power and tech far beyond theirs. "All personnel, exit defensive positions and proceed to Central Mining Complex. Failure to comply will result in enforcement." The voice again. No emotion, no identification. Mark's instincts screamed at him. He'd seen how corporate enforcers operated, come in after the fighting was over, lock things down, cover their own asses. Only this didn't feel corporate, too cold, too efficient. He keyed his squad channel. "Hold position, no one moves yet." "Captain?" It was Jenkins, one of the younger fighters. Barely 20. His voice shook. "They just saved our asses. Shouldn't we, cooperate?" Mark scanned the hovering ship again. No insignia, no visible crew, no shuttles launched. Just that voice. "Number not, until we know who we're dealing with." Cutter grunted approval. About damn time someone used their head. A ripple of unease spread through the trench line. The survivors, miners with rifles, exhausted guards, medics, looked to Mark for direction. He felt the weight of it. If he gave the wrong order, these people were dead. Then, without warning, a figure descended from the ship, not by shuttle, not by drop pod. It simply appeared. One moment empty air, the next a man-shaped figure standing atop the nearest ridge, backlit by the warship's eerie glow. It was human, or looked it. Tall, clad head to toe in black armor with no visible seams or joints. The helmet was featureless, a smooth obsidian faceplate that reflected nothing. In its right hand, it carried a long, slender weapon, not any pulse rifle or plasma gun Mark recognized. The figure stood silently, surveying the battered outpost. Then it spoke, not through speakers, but directly into Mark's comm frequency. "Captain Mark Hanlon, you are the ranking human authority here. You will comply." Mark's blood ran cold. It knew his name. He keyed a private channel. "Who the hell are you?" No answer. Only repetition. "Proceed to Central Mining Complex. You have 10 minutes. Around him, the fighters shifted uneasily. Some were ready to follow the order. Desperation did that to people. But others looked to Mark. Cutter spat into the dirt. Bastards didn't even introduce themselves. Mark's mind raced. What choice did they have? Stay in the trenches, risk being labeled hostile, or move under unknown terms? He made a call. "Jenkins, you and Bravo hold the line here. No one leaves unless I say." "Yes, sir." "Cutter, you're with me. Let's see what these ghosts want." The two men climbed from the trenches. Dust swirled around their boots as they made the long walk toward the central mining hub, an ugly, domed structure half buried in the rock. The black-armored figure didn't move, didn't even twitch, just watched. As they approached, Cutter grumbled, Feel like we're walking into our own damn funeral. Mark didn't disagree. At the complex entrance, a second figure appeared. Identical armor, identical weapon. Wordlessly, it gestured them inside. No choice. They entered. The interior was dim, flickering emergency lights, casting long shadows across the steel walls. The place smelled of blood and ozone, last week's battles still lingering in the air. In the command room, they found him.
A man, not armored, but dressed in a sharp black uniform, face pale and angular. His eyes were cold, calculating. Beside him, two more black-armored figures stood silent. "Captain Hanlon," the man said smoothly. "I am Director Grayson. I represent Division 7. Mark's stomach twisted. Division 7, a name whispered in dark corners of fleet bars. Not official, not acknowledged. The kind of people who made problems disappear. "You're a long way from Earth, Director," Mark said flatly. Grayson's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. "We go where we are needed, and right now this moon is a matter of strategic interest." "Strategic?" Cutter barked a harsh laugh. "It's a dead rock. Only thing here's a bunch of half-starved miners and a bug infestation." Grayson's smile widened just a hair. "There is more beneath this moon than you understand. Your survival was convenient." Mark's fists clenched. Convenient, like they were assets, not people. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Grayson gestured to the black figures. "Order your people to comply fully with quarantine protocols. You will remain here under our protection until the situation is resolved." "And if we don't?" Mark asked quietly. Grayson's eyes gleamed. "You won't like the alternative." Mark's mind spun. They'd survived the bugs, barely. Now they were trapped under the thumb of something worse. Division 7 didn't rescue people. They cleaned up messes and made sure no witnesses remained. The warship wasn't salvation. It was a leash. Before Mark could speak, an urgent buzz from his wrist comm interrupted. Jenkins, voice low and shaking. "Captain, you better get back out here. Something's happening with the ship." Mark exchanged a grim look with Cutter. Grayson tilted his head. "You're excused, for now. But remember, Captain, we are watching." Mark turned without another word and stalked out. Cutter followed. Outside, the warship had shifted, still hovering, but now emitting strange pulses of light across its hull. The hum in the air had deepened to a subsonic thrum that rattled Mark's bones. Then, a crack in the sky. A thin line of impossible darkness split the air above the ship. Not clouds, not smoke. Something deeper. Wrong. A cold wind howled through the outpost. Jenkins ran up, eyes wide. "Sir, it's opening something. And the bugs. They're coming back." Mark looked to the horizon and felt his heart lurch. The canyons teemed with motion. Thousands, tens of thousands of bugs swarming toward the outpost. Faster than before, more frenzied, driven. And through it all, that crack in the sky grew wider. Cutter's voice was low, grim. "They didn't save us, Mark. They brought something here." Mark stared at the warship, at the widening tear in the heavens, and realized the awful truth. They weren't fighting to survive anymore. They were trapped in someone else's war. Mark's boots pounded the rocky ground as he and Cutter sprinted back toward the trench line. Behind them, the mining complex pulsed with that eerie glow, the sky-splitting crack widening above the phantom warship. The hum in the air felt alive now, vibrating through bone, through teeth, through the deep part of the brain that understood primal fear. And ahead, the horizon boiled with motion, thousands of bugs. No formations this time, no tactical waves. This was a swarm, unthinking, ravenous, as though something had snapped their leashes. Mark vaulted into the forward trench, grabbing Jenkins by the shoulder. The young man's face was white, eyes wild. "Report!" "They're coming fast, Captain," Jenkins stammered. Faster than before. I don't know what's driving them, but—" A deep, chittering shriek rolled across the landscape, so loud the air seemed to crack. It wasn't just a signal. It was a command, one the bugs couldn't ignore. "Sound general alarm," Mark shouted. "Full combat stations. We hold this line." Around him, exhausted fighters scrambled, loading weapons, reinforcing barricades, setting fresh charges. The civilians in the mining shaft would stay buried deep. No choice now. Cutter dropped beside him, rifle in hand. "We're screwed." "Not yet," Mark growled. But the words felt hollow even in his own mouth. They'd fought off waves before. Barely. But this was different. The bugs weren't retreating. They weren't probing. They were coming to end it. And above them, the warship just hovered, silent and watching. "What the hell did they do?" Cutter muttered. "Why now?" Mark's mind reeled. Grayson had said the moon held something more, something beneath the surface, and that crack wasn't natural. The ship had triggered it, deliberately. But why bait the swarm? Unless this was the point. "Brace!" someone shouted. The bugs hit like a tidal wave. The ground trembled as the first ranks poured into the kill zone, a writhing sea of chitin, claws, and mandibles. Rifles hammered, grenades flew, plasma scorched the night. The trench line erupted into chaos. Mark fired in brutal bursts, pulse rifle kicking hard against his shoulder. Each shot dropped a bug, but there were always more. Bodies piled high, yet the swarm pushed forward, climbing their dead. To his right, a squad of miners fell back under sheer weight of numbers, claws dragging men screaming into the mass. Mark swung his rifle, cutting a bloody path through the breach, dragging two survivors back by their collars. "Hold the damn line!" he roared. Somewhere behind, Cutter triggered buried charges. A wall of flame engulfed the front ranks, buying seconds. Just seconds. Jenkins dropped beside Mark, face streaked with blood. "Captain, we can't hold this," Mark's comm crackled. Grayson's voice, calm amid the slaughter. "Captain Hanlon, fall back to the mining shaft. Seal all access points. Now." Mark's gut twisted. Why now? Why order a fallback after triggering the swarm, unless— "They want us boxed in," Cutter spat. "They want us down there, out of the way." Mark's jaw clenched, but the line wouldn't hold. And staying here meant dying pointlessly. "Signal all units. Controlled fallback," he ordered. "Retreat to the shaft in waves. Cover each other." Around him, battered fighters began pulling back, dragging wounded, laying suppressive fire. Mark stayed in the rear with Cutter, hammering anything that got too close. As they retreated, Mark glanced back once, the warship's shadow looming, the sky above it now torn wide. Something moved in that darkness, something vast. But there was no time to think. They reached the shaft entrance, a massive steel door, blast-rated for cave-ins. Survivors poured through, maybe 30 left total. Fewer than half of who'd started. Mark slammed the external lock. "Seal it!" Heavy servos groaned as the door clanged shut. Inside, the air was thick with sweat, blood, fear. Flickering lights cast grim faces in harsh relief. Grayson was already there, flanked by his silent armored guards. "You obeyed the order," he said coolly. Mark stalked up, fury boiling over. "What the hell is going on? You brought this on us. That ship of yours? That crack? What are you trying to do out there?" Grayson didn't flinch. "You've seen what lies beneath this moon. The Zirath aren't the primary threat. They are attracted to it, drawn by its activation." "Activation?" Cutter snapped. "You mean that rip in the damn sky?" Grayson's smile was thin. "Your survival here was statistically improbable, yet convenient. The Zirath swarm presents the perfect field test for our containment protocols." Mark's blood went cold. Field test. They weren't rescuing the outpost. They were using it, using them to see what would happen. "You son of a bitch," Mark breathed. "You used us as bait." "Better us than an inhabited colony," Grayson replied without remorse. "Acceptable losses." Mark lunged. Only Cutter's grip on his arm stopped him from decking the bastard. "This isn't over," Mark growled. "No," Grayson said calmly. "It's just beginning." Suddenly, alarms blared inside the shaft. Red lights pulsed. One of Grayson's guards touched a console. "Director, structural breach. Lower tunnels." Grayson's expression sharpened. "Impossible. The swarm should not penetrate that deep." Mark felt a sick certainty settle in his gut. "They weren't trying to get in," he said hoarsely. "They're being drawn down." Grayson's eyes narrowed. "Show me." They moved fast. Mark, Cutter, Grayson, and 2 guards, deeper into the mining shaft's lower levels. The air grew colder, older. Walls here were untouched for years, tunnels abandoned when the deeper veins ran dry, but now, strange lights flickered ahead, and the sound, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate the skull. Mark's comms picked up fragments, screams, weapons fire. The bugs were already inside. They reached a collapsed tunnel junction. Behind it, something glowed faintly, and there, in the shadows, a shape. Not bug, not human. A black monolith, half buried in stone, its surface shifting with unreadable symbols. Ancient, older than the colony, older than humanity, and around it, bugs writhed, ignoring the humans entirely, as though entranced, as though worshipping. Grayson's eyes gleamed. "Finally," Mark stared at him. "You knew about this." "Of course," Grayson said softly. "That is why we came. The Zyrath revere these artifacts. We need to understand why. The warship's resonance field activated the artifact, and now we observe." "Observe," Cutter spat. "They're breaching our lines, killing our people, and you're running an experiment?" Grayson turned, voice cold. "This knowledge is worth far more than a few miners or soldiers. Humanity must advance. Sacrifices are necessary." Mark's hands shook with fury. They'd been used from the start, pawns in a game they didn't understand. But before he could speak, the monolith pulsed. A wave of force slammed through the tunnel, throwing them all to the ground. Lights flickered, weapons shorted, bugs shrieked, scattering, and from the darkness beyond the monolith, something moved, something big, something not Zyrath. Cutter coughed, dragging himself up. "Oh, hell," he rasped. "What now?" Mark rose, rifle shaking in his grip. Through the dust, a vast, shifting shape coalesced, all jagged limbs and impossible geometry. No eyes, no face, just presence. Something ancient had woken, and they were trapped down here with it. The thing that rose from behind the monolith wasn't alive in any way, Mark understood. It didn't walk. It didn't crawl. It shifted, folding and unfolding in jagged patterns that made the air shimmer. Its limbs were thin one moment, massive the next. No joints, no anatomy, no sense. Just motion. And a presence, a pressure in the skull, like someone drilling into the mind from the inside. Cutter staggered beside Mark, one hand clutching his temple. "It's in my head! Damn it, it's in my head!" Mark forced himself to focus. Tactical. Focus. Breathe. He snapped off a shot. The pulse bolt struck the thing and vanished like light into a black hole. No damage. No reaction. The bugs, too, had scattered, hissing and chittering in panic. Whatever this was, even they wanted no part of it now. Grayson. Grayson just stared, eyes wide, lips moving in soundless awe. Mark grabbed him, shook him hard. "What the hell is that thing?" Grayson's gaze never left the creature. It's beyond classification. Precursor technology, or something more. The artifact was a signal node, a key. He trailed off. The shifting thing turned. Or maybe it didn't. And suddenly it was closer. A dozen meters away when Mark blinked, now only 5. The air iced around it, frost forming on the walls. Then it spoke. Not with words. With pressure. Thought. A cold, bottomless message pressed directly into the brain. You do not belong. You are not of the makers. You will be unmade. Mark recoiled, the force of it enough to stagger him physically. Cutter fell to one knee, panting. Even Grayson flinched. But then, shockingly, he smiled. Yes, he whispered. Yes, communication. We can learn from it. Mark didn't wait. He grabbed Cutter, hauled him up. We're leaving. Grayson snapped out of his trance, eyes blazing. You can't! Do you understand what this is worth? What it could mean for humanity? Mark rounded on him, face like stone. You've killed half my people, trapped us in this hole, and unleashed God knows what on us. And now you want to study it? His voice was ice. You're insane! Grayson's guards raised their weapons. Mark didn't hesitate. Tactician first, soldier always. His sidearm was out in a flash. 2 shots. Both guards dropped before they could fire. Cutter covered him, rifle sweeping the tunnel. Grayson backed against the wall, shock twisting his face. You fool! You don't understand! Shut up! Mark growled. Move, Cutter! They ran. Behind them, the thing surged forward. The pressure grew stronger. Lights exploded, concrete cracked under unseen force. Alarms wailed. Mark and Cutter pounded through the tunnels, pulse rifles ready, breathing hard. Where the hell do we go? Cutter gasped. Up, Mark snapped. Get to the main shaft. Find survivors. We're getting out. They reached the first junction, and found hell. The bugs were everywhere again, but not attacking. They scuttled along walls and ceilings, eyes wide and bodies quivering, fleeing upward. The creature below wasn't just hunting them. It was driving everything out, pushing higher. Cutter blew away a bug that got too close. We're rats in a damn trap, he yelled. Mark's mind raced. They couldn't stay underground, not with that thing coming. Not with the warship above still controlling the sky. But if they could get out, get a signal out, maybe there was still a chance. They reached the mid-level barracks. A dozen survivors huddled there, Jenkins among them, bruised but alive. Captain, he ran over. What the hell's happening? Bugs are going nuts. Grayson locked us out of the command core. Grayson's not running things anymore, Mark said grimly. Grab weapons, med packs, we're punching out. Eyes widened, but no one argued. These men had been through too much. Trust was earned in blood now, and Mark had earned it. Plan? Cutter asked, slamming a new battery into his rifle. Mark's gaze hardened. We breach, hit the surface, find a way past that ship, or die trying. Simple. Brutal. Only plan left. Jenkins hesitated. Sir, the warship's got automated guns on the ridge. I saw 'em when we fell back. Mark nodded. I'll handle that. He turned to the group. Weapons hot. Move fast. No heroes. If anyone falls, keep moving. No second chances now. Steel entered their faces. They were scared. Anyone with sense would be. But fear was a good edge. Kept you sharp. They moved. Tunnels shook as they climbed. The thing below still coming. The last access corridor to the surface was sealed, an old maintenance shaft, half collapsed. But Mark and Cutter blasted it open with demo charges. They emerged into pale twilight, the sky above torn wide by that impossible rift. The warship hovered, guns tracking the ground. And the bugs, they were everywhere up here too, skittering in blind panic. Mark grabbed Jenkins. EMP charges. You still have them? Yeah, 2 left. Mark took one, shoved it into Cutter's hands. Hit the west tower. I'll take east. Guns go down, we run for the ridge. Cutter clapped him on the shoulder. See you topside. No more words. No time for them. They split. Mark sprinted low and fast, dodging, scuttling bugs. The warship's turret swiveled, scanning. He popped smoke, thin cover but better than none. Reaching the east tower, he set the charge. 10-second timer. Beep, beep, beep. He ran. The blast punched a white shockwave across the ridge. The gun turret sparked and died. Across the field, Cutter's charge detonated a second later. Path clear. Mark hit the comm. Go, move! The survivors poured from cover, sprinting for the rocky ridge. Plasma bolts tore past. Automated drones still active, but without the heavy guns, they had a chance. Mark grabbed Jenkins mid-sprint, hauled him through a blast wave. Cutter covered the flank, rifle singing. Almost there. Then, a scream behind. Mark turned. One of the black-armored Division 7 troopers had emerged from the mine, moving faster than human. More like a machine, weapon raised. Without thinking, Mark drew and fired. 3 shots dead center. The trooper dropped, but another was already coming. "Run!" he shouted. They reached the ridge, breath burning, legs lead. Ahead, a ravine. Too deep to jump. But an old ore hauler lay wrecked across it, a narrow bridge of twisted metal. No choice. Mark led the way, crossing fast, keeping low. Below, the swarm of bugs writhed like a living sea. One slip meant death. Jenkins almost fell. Mark grabbed his arm, yanked him across. Cutter laid down cover fire behind them. Finally, the far side. They collapsed in the dust. Alive, for now. Mark rolled to a crouch, scanning the sky. The warship hovered, guns searching. But they were beyond the primary perimeter. Cutter dragged himself up, grinning through blood. "Damn, Captain. Still breathing." Mark smirked grimly. "Give it 5 minutes." He keyed his comm, blind bursting on all channels. "Any human vessel, this is Captain Mark Hanlon of Kepri 9. Division 7 has gone rogue. Hostile artifact activated. We require extraction and immediate containment strike. Repeat." Static. Then, a faint crackle. "Copy. This is Frigate Warspite. Signal faint. Coordinates..." Mark's heart leapt. A real Navy ship. "Coordinates incoming," he barked. "Move! Move!" Cutter grinned wider. "Damn right." But as they ran, a cold certainty settled in Mark's gut. Grayson wouldn't let them go. The thing in the mine wouldn't stay buried. And the warship, it was still watching, still waiting. They moved fast. There was no other option. Mark led from the front, every muscle burning. Behind him, Cutter, Jenkins, and the ragged handful of survivors pushed to keep pace. Speed was life now. The Warspite's signal had been faint, a fleeting crackle in the static. But it was enough. An extraction window, maybe. Maybe. If they could reach the northern ridge beacon in time. Mark's mind worked as fast as his legs. Grayson wouldn't sit idle. Not after what they'd seen. Not after the firefight in the shaft. Division 7 would already be hunting them. And that thing, whatever had risen in the mine, was still down there. For now. But the way the ground trembled beneath their feet, it wasn't going to stay contained. "Captain," Jenkins panted, pulling up beside him. "Sir, the bugs, they're falling back." Mark risked a glance. He was right. The swarm that had flooded the surface was thinning, pulling away, not in retreat, but in panic, drawn back toward the mine. The implications chilled Mark more than the night air. "Something's coming up," Cutter said grimly. "Bugs know it." Mark nodded once. He felt it too. The sky itself seemed to pulse in time with the thing below, that widening tier shimmering with impossible energy. They reached the old comms tower, a rusted skeleton of steel overlooking the basin. Mark signaled a halt. "Quick breather, Jenkins. Status." The young man wiped sweat from his brow, face pale. "Counting us, we've got 10 survivors. Ammo low, no heavy weapons." Mark's jaw tightened. Not much to fight with. Not much to fight for, except survival. Cutter crouched beside him, checking his battered rifle. We're not alone out here. Mark nodded. He'd seen them too. Black armored figures moving in the shadows. Division 7 operatives, hunting, silent. No comm chatter, no flanking maneuvers. Just cold, relentless pursuit. Grayson wasn't just cleaning up loose ends. He was covering his tracks. If they got a signal out, if they told the Navy what Division 7 had unleashed here, Grayson's whole operation would burn. And Grayson wasn't the type to let that happen. Mark keyed his comm, voice low. Warspite, this is Hanlon. Moving to Extraction Point Bravo. Hostile pursuit in progress. Artifact breach imminent. Request immediate support. Only Static answered. Cutter exhaled sharply. We're on our own. Not yet, Mark said. He glanced at the survivors. Grim, battered, eyes hollow but still burning. They'd followed him this far. He wouldn't stop now. Move out, he ordered. They pushed north, skirting the ridge. The terrain here was rough, jagged rock and unstable shale. One wrong step could snap an ankle, break a leg, but speed was life. No stopping, no hesitation. Then, movement ahead. Mark threw up a fist. Halt! Shadows flickered between the rocks. Division 7 strike team, 5 operatives, sleek and fast, moving in perfect silence. Mark's pulse spiked. Ambush, he signaled silently. Flank right. Cutter and 2 survivors peeled off, moving low. Mark led the others left. Patience, timing, kill clean, kill fast. He waited, breath slow, steady. The operatives moved into the kill zone. Too confident, too precise, predictable. Mark fired first, a tight triple burst. The lead operative crumpled. Chaos erupted, Cutter's team hammering the flank, Jenkins on suppression. One of the black-armored figures surged toward Mark. Too fast, inhuman. He sidestepped, driving his knife up under the helmet seal. The body spasmed and dropped. Seconds later, silence. 5 bodies down. But Mark wasn't smiling. Grayson wouldn't have sent just one team. We keep moving, he ordered. Double time. They ran. Behind them, the ground shook harder, dust rising in clouds. The rift above the mine pulsed brighter, streaks of lightning arcing across the sky, and then a sound. Not a roar, not a scream. A note, deep and resonant, felt in the bones, in the blood, ancient, alien, wrong. Jenkins stumbled. Captain, what the hell is that? Mark's face was grim. It's waking up. No one needed more explanation. They ran harder. The extraction point was a flat ridge overlooking the western valley, a rocky plateau marked by an old navigation beacon. If the warspite was coming, this was where it would drop. If. Mark led them up the final slope, lungs burning, legs shaking. Then, gunfire. Division 7 already here. Turrets on auto-sentry mode, sleek, silent killers, tracked their approach, spitting controlled bursts. Cutter dove behind cover, swearing. Damn it! They're sealing the ridge! Mark scanned fast. Terrain, angles, weaknesses. They couldn't take the guns head on. But maybe they didn't have to. He grabbed Jenkins. Flank left. Crawl the shale line. Cutter, right. Demo charge on the south post. They moved, fast and silent. Mark crawled low, feeling rock tear at his armor. One slip would mean death, but better that than sitting still. Above, the sky flared brighter. The note grew louder. The ground trembled constantly now. It was coming up. Mark reached the first turret blind, a sleek thing pulsing with energy. He popped the side panel, jammed an EMP grenade, rolled clear. Whump! The turret sparked and died. Cutter's charge blew the second post moments later. Move! Mark shouted. The survivors surged up the ridge, weary, bloody, but unbroken. They reached the beacon. Mark slammed the transmitter active. Signal boost. Open channel. This is Captain Hanlon. Extraction point Bravo secured. Hostile pursuit neutralized. Artifact breach in progress. We need immediate evac. Static. Then, a voice. Warspite actual. Signal locked. Inbound. ETA 6 minutes. Relief washed through the survivors, but only for a second, because the tremors peaked, and with a deafening, impossible shriek, the rift above the mine tore wide open. A shape rose from the crater, vast and formless, a writhing mass of black geometry and searing light. No limbs, no eyes, just presence, a towering column of impossible angles and shifting mass, and beneath it, the bugs fled in utter panic, scattering in all directions. The thing had come topside, and it was moving toward the ridge. Mark's blood ran cold. 6 minutes wasn't going to be enough. Cutter watched grimly. "We hold or we die." Mark nodded once. No retreat, no surrender. He keyed the comm again. "Warspite, be advised. Artifact entity is mobile and converging on our position. Recommend heavy ordnance on approach." "Copy, Hanlon. Weapons hot." The survivors formed a tight perimeter, every rifle ready. Mark checked his sidearm, calm now. Death didn't scare him. Failure did. And he wasn't leaving this thing for someone else to clean up. "Here it comes," Cutter said quietly. The entity surged closer, the air itself warping, tearing, reality bent around it, light flickering, time stuttering. Mark drew a long breath. One last fight, one last stand. "For humanity," he said softly. Cutter grinned through blood. "Damn right." Then the thing hit the ridge, and hell came with it. It hit like a wave of unreality. As the entity surged up the ridge, the world broke. Mark saw it in flashes, space itself bending, time stuttering like a broken vidfeed. 1 second Cutter was beside him, the next a few feet away, mid-move, mouth open as if sound itself lagged. Rocks hovered mid-air, shadows bent in impossible directions. And the sound, not a noise but a presence, in their heads, in their bones. "You are not of the makers. You will be unmade." Mark clenched his jaw, forcing himself to act. Fight, not freeze. The human mind wasn't built for this, but the soldier's will could bend where lesser men broke. He fired, knowing it wouldn't do much, but needing to act. Blue-white pulses streaked toward the entity's mass and vanished. No effect. "Hold the line," he shouted, voice iron through the storm. The survivors rallied, rifles snapping, grenades flying. Cutter stood tall, pumping burst after burst into the shifting darkness. Jenkins crouched by the beacon, screaming into the comm. "Warspite, now! We're about to be overrun!" "ETA 3 minutes, the cold Navy voice answered. 3 minutes, an eternity. Then, new shapes moved among the rocks. Black Armored Division 7 operatives, the last team, 6 of them, moving like shadows, immune to the chaos. Grayson's final hand. Mark spotted their leader. Tall, helmeted, rifle raised. No hesitation, they opened fire, on the survivors. Bastards weren't here to fight the entity. They were here to silence witnesses. Mark dove behind a shattered outcrop as pulse rounds chewed the stone. "Division 7 engaging us," he roared. "Take them down!" Cutter didn't hesitate. Pivoted, dropped one with a headshot. Jenkins dragged 2 survivors into cover, one screaming from a gut wound. Mark flanked right, moving low, came up behind one of the operatives, and drove his knife into the back joint. Armor cracked, the body spasmed and fell. But more were coming, and the entity was closer, tendrils of black light lashing the ridge. 2 survivors were caught mid-run, frozen in place as if time had stopped, their bodies crumbling to ash a second later. Mark gritted his teeth. No time to mourn, no time to feel, only fight. He keyed the beacon one more time. "Warspite, hostile Division 7 operatives engaging. Entity breaching defensive line. We need immediate strike support." "Copy, Hanlon. Weapons hot. Firing run in progress." Above, the sky shimmered, A faint gleam of salvation. The warspite was here, but the ridge was already hell. Mark sprinted to Jenkins' position. The young man looked up, sweat pouring down his face. "Sir, we can't hold this much longer." "We hold," Mark said, voice flat. "We hold till the Navy strikes or we die." Simple truth, no other outcome. He turned, Cutter fighting like a demon, rifle red hot. But then, a flash. One of the Division 7 troopers flanked him, fired point blank. Cutter staggered, hit hard, dropped to one knee. Mark didn't think. He moved, slammed into the trooper, driving them both to the ground. A brutal struggle, fists, knives, rage. Mark won. Barely. Blood on his hands. No time to wipe it. He crawled to Cutter. The old vet coughed blood, grinning weakly. "Bastards got me good this time." Mark's throat tightened. No time, no words. He grabbed Cutter's rifle, checked the magazine. Still some life in it. Cutter gripped his wrist. "Don't stop." "Never," Mark said, voice cold. He rose, bloodied, tired, and kept fighting. Above, a thunderous roar. The warspite broke through the clouds, a sleek Navy frigate, guns blazing. Salvation, if they could last seconds longer. Bright lances of energy hammered the entity, making it recoil, if only slightly. But it adapted fast, tendrils lashing upward, trying to catch the ship. Mark knew the frigate couldn't hover long. It had to move or be torn apart. "Extraction in progress," the comm blared. "Get to the beacon, now." Mark didn't hesitate. He grabbed Jenkins, hauled him toward the center. "Everyone move! Final run, now!" What was left of the survivors sprinted, through gunfire, through the entity's lashings. 2 more fell. No screams, just silence. Mark reached the beacon. The warspite dropped a gravity sling, sleek, silver, the only way up fast. Jenkins jumped first, vanishing in a flash of light. Mark shoved the wounded next. 1, 2, 3, then a shadow loomed. Grayson. Not a ghost. The man himself, walking through the storm like it was nothing. No armor, no helmet, just cold eyes and a pistol. "You're ruining everything," he said softly. Mark raised his rifle. "Go to hell." Grayson smiled thinly and fired. Mark dodged, not fast enough. The round grazed his side, pain flaring. But Mark fired back, full burst. Grayson staggered, blood blossoming, but didn't fall. Somehow he kept walking. Mark didn't hesitate. He charged, slammed the butt of his rifle into Grayson's face. The man dropped, finally human again, not some untouchable spook. No time to finish it. The entity was almost on them. The air froze. The light dimmed. Mark grabbed Cutter's abandoned beacon control. Keyed override, 1 shot left on the sling. He looked down at Grayson, bleeding, gasping. "Not today," Mark growled. He hit the trigger, the sling flared, and Mark vanished in a blur of light. He hit the deck of the warspite hard, rolling to his feet, rifle ready even now. Jenkins was there, wide-eyed. "Sir, you made it." Mark looked around. 7 survivors total, out of almost 100. Not good, but alive. A Navy officer ran up. Lieutenant Hale, uniform crisp despite the chaos. "Captain Hanlon, we've got you. Ship's pulling clear. Strike package inbound on the rift." Mark grabbed his arm. "Not enough." "That thing is adapting. Hit it with everything." Hale nodded, face grim. "Understood." The warspite banked, main guns charging. On the screens, the entity loomed over the ridge, still growing, still moving, but this time, the Navy brought proper firepower. Torpedoes streaked down, plasma lances flared, the ridge vanished in fire and fury. Mark watched, heart cold. Hit it again, and again, and again. When the smoke finally cleared, the ridge was gone, a blasted crater. The rift above flickered, unstable, shrinking. The entity? No sign. For now. Hale exhaled. We'll call it a kill, Captain. Mark wasn't so sure. Nothing that old dies easy. He slumped against the bulkhead, blood loss catching up. Jenkins sat beside him, silent. After a long moment, the younger man spoke. We made it. Mark nodded slowly. For now. But deep down, he knew. Grayson wasn't dead. Not really. Division 7 wouldn't stop. And the thing they'd unleashed? It had tasted freedom. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The infirmary aboard the Warspite stank of blood, antiseptic, and burned ozone. Mark sat on the edge of a metal cot, shirt peeled away to expose the plasma burn scoring his ribs. The medtech worked silently, her hands quick and efficient. Mark barely felt the sting. Pain was an old friend by now. Across the room, Jenkins sat stiff-backed on another cot, knuckles white. The kid was alive, physically, at least. The same couldn't be said for the others. 7 survivors. That was the final count. 7 out of 93. Mark's jaw tightened. The fight was over, for now. But the war was just beginning. Division 7 didn't lose easily. And Grayson, if the bastard wasn't dead on that ridge, he was already planning the next move. Footsteps approached, crisp, deliberate. Mark looked up as Commander Ryland, the Warspite's XO, entered. Tall, sharp-eyed, regulation perfect. One of those Navy officers who'd made a career out of towing the line while keeping both eyes open. The kind you could respect. Cautiously. Ryland came to a halt beside Mark's cot. You gave us quite a show down there, Captain. Mark's voice was flat. You saw the data feeds? Ryland nodded grimly. The whole operation. The rift. The entity. Division 7's little black project. It's going to cause waves. Mark snorted, a bitter sound. They'll bury it. Ryland's eyes narrowed. I won't let them. Mark studied him. The man meant it, but intent didn't mean capability. Not when it came to Division 7's reach. What's your orders? Mark asked. Ryland hesitated. A flicker. Brief but telling. Command wants us to deliver the survivors to Lunar Station for debriefing. After that? He shook his head. Classified. Mark's lips thinned. You mean disappear us? Ryland didn't deny it. There's a lot of pressure coming down already. Messages from Fleet Intelligence, messages from sources above Fleet Intelligence. Division 7. Ryland nodded grimly. Jenkins leaned forward, face pale. Sir, they can't just erase us. We did our job. We survived. Mark met the kid's eyes. Hard truths. They can and they will, Jenkins. Division 7 doesn't leave witnesses. That's their entire playbook. Ryland crossed his arms. I'm giving you a chance, Hanlon. The Navy owes you more than a quiet burial. I can get you an audience. Fleet Admiral Kendrick is still clean, for now. Mark's mind moved fast. A political fight wasn't his game, but survival was. If I talk to Kendrick, I want full protection for my people, all of them. Ryland gave a small nod. You have my word. Mark wasn't satisfied, but it was the only card on the table. Then we do it, fast, before Grayson's ghosts catch up. They docked at Lunar Station Prime 48 hours later, a gleaming sprawl of steel and glass orbiting Earth's battered moon. Mark hated stations. Too clean, too artificial, no dirt, no grit, just polished lies and smiling faces. The Warspite's survivors were whisked into secure quarters, guarded, watched, no access to outside comms. For their protection, Ryland said. Mark didn't believe it for a second, but the audience with Fleet Admiral Kendrick came faster than expected. Ryland pulled every string he had, and some he didn't, to make it happen. Mark and Jenkins were escorted to a conference chamber deep in the command wing, flanked by Navy MPs, not Division 7 agents. A small mercy. Kendrick was already there, an older man, hard-faced, eyes like stone. No politician's smile, a soldier's stare. Mark saluted stiffly. "Sir," Kendrick motioned them to sit. "I've reviewed the preliminary reports, Captain. You did well, under impossible circumstances." Mark didn't waste breath on false modesty. "We got lucky. The thing down there isn't dead, and Division 7 isn't done." Kendrick's mouth tightened. "I know." He tapped a datapad. Hollow screens flickered to life, images from the Kepri 9 op, the entity rising, the rift, Grayson's troops firing on human survivors. "Division 7 overstepped," Kendrick said coldly, "but they're not rogue. They're protected. Orders came from deep inside Unified Command, layers even I can't cut through yet." Mark's gut twisted. "Then we're already dead." "Not yet," Kendrick said. His gaze sharpened. "I need you to testify, on record, full debrief. If we move fast enough, we can force a fleet inquiry before Division 7 can sanitize the evidence." Mark considered it. A dangerous play. Going public would paint a target on all of them. But silence was worse. It would let Grayson's work continue. "I'll do it," he said. "On one condition." "Name it." "My people, full protection. Relocation if necessary. Witness protection protocols." Kendrick nodded. "Done." Mark met his gaze. "I'm not naive, sir. Division 7 will come after us anyway. You'd better be ready to fight dirty." A thin smile. "I didn't make Admiral by playing fair, Captain." The official fleet inquiry was launched within 24 hours, faster than Mark thought possible. Kendrick moved like a man who knew the clock was ticking. Mark gave his testimony in a sealed chamber, full hollow recording, secured by fleet intelligence loyalists. He told it all. Grayson's arrival, the manipulation, the entity, the survivors gunned down to cover the op. He didn't sugarcoat a damn word. Jenkins testified too, shaky but strong. The kid had steel under the scars. Other survivors followed. The truth went into the system, a dangerous truth. But Division 7 moved just as fast. Mark felt the shift almost immediately. Tighter security. More shadows in the halls. Fleet officers who wouldn't meet his eye. Ryland met him in the observation deck late one cycle, grim-faced. "Bad news. There's chatter. Division 7 assets already inbound. They want to shut this down." Mark's jaw clenched. "Extraction window?" Ryland's gaze hardened. "Kendrick's pulling strings, but they won't hold forever. You've got one shot. Transfer off station under diplomatic clearance. After that, you disappear." Mark looked out at the stars, cold and vast. "I've been disappearing my whole life," he said quietly. "When the strike came, it came fast. Station alarms blared. Breach in the lower docks. Not pirates, not raiders. Division 7 kill team." Ryland burst into Mark's quarters, sidearm drawn. "They're here. Move." Mark grabbed Jenkins and the few remaining survivors. No hesitation. Fight or die. The escape run was brutal. Decks in lockdown, bulkheads sealed. But Ryland had allies. They carved a path through the chaos. Gunfire echoed through the station. Civilians screamed. Division 7 didn't care about collateral damage. Mark fought like a demon. Pulse rifle kicking, instincts sharp. He gunned down 2 black-armored operatives in the habitat ring, knife-killed a third at close quarters. Jenkins stuck close, face grim but steady. They reached the diplomatic shuttle bay, Kendrick's last card. A sleek courier waited, engines hot. Fleet guards held the line as the survivors boarded. Kendrick himself appeared, blood on his sleeve, eyes blazing. "Go," he ordered. "I'll cover this side." Mark met his gaze. No words, just a nod. Soldier to soldier. Then the hatch sealed, and the shuttle blasted free, cutting through the station's defensive perimeter. Division 7 fired, rail rounds streaking past, but too late. Mark sat in the cockpit, watching the stars wheel by. Alive. For now. But war had been declared, a shadow war, and Mark Hanlon wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. The stars burned cold through the shuttle's viewport, a black sea stretching to infinity. Mark sat in the jump seat, rifle across his knees. His ribs ached where the plasma burn hadn't fully healed. His muscles throbbed with the memory of too many fights, too many deaths. But his mind was sharp, focused. The mission wasn't over. Beside him, Jenkins sat hunched, staring blankly ahead. The kid had lost too many friends on Kepri 9. They all had. Of the original 93, only 7 had made it out. Now those 7 were scattered. Safe houses, false identities, relocation orders courtesy of Admiral Kendrick's people. But safe was a lie. Division 7 didn't forgive. Division 7 didn't forget. Mark keyed the comm. Pilot. Status. The courier's pilot, an older woman with scars and a fleet tattoo, answered without turning. Running dark, Captain. We'll hit the first drop point in 30 hours. After that, bounce run to Argo Station. Orders from Kendrick. Mark nodded. Keep it tight. No broadcasts, no leaks. Aye. He closed the channel. Jenkins finally spoke, voice rough. Sir, where do we go after this? Mark's gaze stayed on the stars. Where we're needed. The kid frowned. And after that? Mark looked at him, the weight of too many years in his eyes. We fight. 30 hours later, they made the first drop, a nameless moon in an unclaimed system, safe house buried in the rock, old smuggler routes lacing the crust. Mark, Jenkins, and 2 others disembarked. The rest split off on separate vectors. Kendrick's orders were clear. Scatter, survive, regroup when the hammer fell, because it would. Mark stood at the safe house entrance, watching the courier burn back into the void. No going back now. The bunker was Spartan, concrete, steel, bare essentials. Mark liked it that way. No distractions, no comforts to soften the edge. He unpacked weapons first, laying out every rifle, sidearm, blade with methodical precision, then comm gear, scrambled tight beam, no standard networks. Jenkins, he said. The kid looked up. Sir? Intel, now. Jenkins worked the gear, hands still a little shaky, but getting steadier. The fight had changed him, hardened him. Local traffic's clean, Jenkins reported, but I'm picking up coded bursts on Navy channels. Division 7's hunting. They've flagged us as rogue. Mark expected it. Details? Publicly, they're calling it a containment breach incident. Kepri 9's been locked down. No official survivors, no mention of the entity. Mark's mouth tightened. The cover-up was already rolling. And Kendrick? Off the grid. Jenkins hesitated. Rumors say he's facing internal review, pressure from high command. Mark's gut twisted. Kendrick had stuck his neck out. Division 7 would be coming for him just as hard. We'll get him out if we can, Mark said quietly. But first, we need leverage. Over the next 3 days, they worked the net. Ghost protocols, back channels, old contacts Mark hadn't used in years. Patterns emerged. Division 7 wasn't just covering up Kepri 9. They were expanding. More ops on fringe worlds. More research sites flagged for quarantine. And the worst part, multiple reports of artifact signals spiking across known space. Kepri 9 hadn't been the only one. Mark stared at the data, a cold certainty settling in his bones. The war wasn't coming. It was already here. Jenkins looked up from the console one night, face pale. Sir, I found something. Mark crossed the room. Show me. Jenkins brought up a feed, fragmented, shaky, smuggled footage from a mining outpost in the Cygnus Reach. The image was blurred, but clear enough to show a familiar shape. A black monolith, symbols flickering, and a figure, tall, thin, stepping out of the shadows. Grayson, alive, smiling. Mark's fists clenched. Bastard's still playing the game. Jenkins swallowed. Sir, what do we do? Mark's eyes were hard as iron. We go hunting. He sent coded bursts through the deepest channels he had left, to old allies, ex-soldiers, mercs who'd fought in the dirt and the dark, men who owed him favors, men who hated Division 7 even more than he did. The answers came back fast. In, hell yes. A new warband began to form. Off the books, off the grid, no ranks, no politics, just soldiers who wanted to bleed Division 7 dry. Mark briefed Jenkins and the others. This is the only fight that matters now. Division 7's playing with forces they can't control. If they win, humanity burns. No one argued. Not after Kepri 9. Not after what they'd seen. 1 week later, Mark stood on a jagged overlook outside the bunker, stars cold above. Jenkins came up beside him. Sir, you think we can stop them? Mark watched the void, thought of the entity, thought of Grayson's smile. Doesn't matter, he said quietly. We fight anyway. He looked at the kid, saw the same hard fire he'd seen in 100 war zones. You're free to walk away, he said. No shame in it. Jenkins shook his head. I'm in, sir. All the way. Mark clapped his shoulder. Not soft, but solid. A soldier's bond. Good, he said, because this is just the first shot. The warband grew, in the shadows, in the cracks of the Empire. And Mark Hanlon, once just another captain, became something else. A hunter, a ghost, a man with a war to wage. Division 7 wasn't ready, but they would learn, one bullet at a time.